Welcome to Wisdom Guides the Righteous, from the Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha, Part 2 of 2, on Words of Wisdom. The Apocrypha is a group of ancient books with uncertain authorship, whose contents overlap parts of the Christian and Hebrew Bibles. The term Apocrypha means secret, hidden, or non-canonical. Indeed, these books have been considered sacred with a more advanced teaching than would normally be made available to the general public. The Apocrypha includes 15 books, most of which were influenced by the Jewish canon of the Old Testament. Today, apocryphal books remain part of the Holy Bible in the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches, while other Christian traditions still value them for religious study. One of the Apocrypha books is the Wisdom of Solomon, in which wisdom is personified, such is the emphasis placed on that virtue. Written in ancient Greek, the Wisdom of Solomon is believed to have been composed not by the beloved King Solomon himself, but in tribute to him by a Jew from Alexandria, Egypt, centuries later. Let us now continue with a reading from the ancient text of the Apocrypha books titled The Wisdom of Solomon. In this excerpt we are able to reflect on the just power and righteousness shown by the Lord His mercy, as well as on the issue of worshipping artificial gods by those who are ignorant of the real Creator. The Wisdom of Solomon. Not that thou wast unable to bring the ungodly under the hand of the righteous in battle, or to destroy them at once with cruel creatures or with one rough word, but executing thy judgments upon them by little and little, thou gavest them place of repentance, not being ignorant that they were a naughty generation, and that their malice was bred in them, and that their cogitation would never be changed. For it was a cursed seed from the beginning. Neither didst thou for fear of any man give them pardon for those things wherein they sinned. For who shall say, What hast thou done? Or who shall withstand thy judgment? Or who shall accuse thee for the nations that perish whom thou made? Or who shall come to stand against thee to be revenged for the unrighteous man? For neither is there any God but thou that careth for all, to whom thou might show that thy judgment is not unright. Neither shall king or tyrant be able to set his face against thee, for any whom thou hast punished. For so much then as thou art righteous thyself, thou orderest all things righteously, thinking it not agreeable with thy power to condemn him that has not deserved to be punished. For thy power is the beginning of righteousness, and because thou art the Lord of all, it maketh thee to be gracious unto all. For when men will not believe that thou art of a full power, thou showest thy strength, and among them that know it thou makest their boldness manifest. But thou, mastering thy power, judgest with equity, and orderest us with great favor, for thou may use power when thou wilt. But by such works hast thou taught thy people that the just man should be merciful, and hast made thy children to be of a good hope, that thou givest repentance for sins. For if thou didst punish the enemies of thy children, and the condemned to death, with such deliberation, giving them time and place whereby they might be delivered from their malice, with how great circumspection didst thou judge thine own sons, unto whose fathers thou hast sworn, and made covenants of good promises. Therefore, whereas thou do chasten us, thou scourgest our enemies 1,000 times more, to the intent that, when we judge, we should carefully think of thy goodness, and when we ourselves are judged, we should look for mercy. Wherefore, whereas men have lived dissolutely and unrighteously, thou hast tormented them with their own abominations. For they went astray very far in the ways of error, and held them for gods, which even among the creatures of their enemies were despised, being deceived as children of no understanding. Therefore unto them, as to children without the use of reason, thou didst send a judgment to mock them. But they that would not be reformed by that correction, wherein he dallied with them, shall feel a judgment worthy of God. For look for what things they grudged when they were punished, that is, for them whom they thought to be gods. Now being punished in them, when they saw it, they acknowledged him to be the true God, whom before they denied to know, and therefore came extreme damnation upon them. Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of God, and could not, out of the good things that are seen, know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. For the first author of beauty has created them. But if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably, the Maker of them is seen. But yet for this they are the less to be blamed, for they perhaps err, seeking God and desirous to find him. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently, and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen. However, neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof? But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver to show art in, and resemblances of creatures, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand. Now a carpenter that felleth timber, after he has sawn down a tree meet for the purpose, and taken off all the bark skilfully round about, and has wrought it handsomely, and made a vessel thereof, fit for the service of man's life, and after spending the refuse of his work to dress his meat, hath filled himself, and taking the very refuse among those which serve to no use, being a crooked piece of wood and full of knots, has carved it diligently when he had nothing else to do, and formed it by the skill of his understanding, and fashioned it to the image of a man, or made it like some wild creature, laying it over with vermilion, and with paint colouring it red, and covering every spot therein. And when he had made a convenient room for it, set it in a wall, and made it fast with iron. For he provided for it that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself. For it is an image, and has need of help. Then maketh he prayer for his goods, for his wife and children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which hath no life. For health he calleth upon that which is weak. For life prays to that which is dead. For aid humbly beseeches that which has least means to help. And for a good journey he asks of that which cannot set a foot forward. And for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hands, asketh ability to do of him that is most unable to do anything. Again, one preparing himself to sail and about to pass through the raging waves calls upon a piece of wood more rotten than the vessel that carries him. For verily, desire of gain devised that, and the workman built it by his skill. But thy providence, O Father, governs it, for thou hast made a way in the sea and a safe path in the waves, showing that thou canst save from all danger, yea, though a man went to sea without art. Nevertheless, thou would not that the works of thy wisdom should be idle, and therefore do men commit their lives to a small piece of wood, and passing the rough sea in a weak vessel are saved. Pious viewers, it was a pleasure to have your company for today's words of wisdom.